Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and hopefully you're ready for the sun to start going down at like 4 o'clock again. You know, when I was younger, I used to love having the sun go down earlier, but as I've gotten older, I don't like it.
I don't know. I actually didn't like it when I was younger because it means that you had to come in earlier when you were playing, but now I'm actually more excited about it as I'm older.
I just wish we'd do away with all of that, but
to not change times would be great. I hate to spring forward.
Well, welcome back to another hump day. Joining me as always is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all of our listeners. So I have a fun question for you. Why did the tree decide to start taking art classes?
Because it saw itself being tattooed on a bunch of people's forearms in the last couple of years. I think that's a very popular tattoo to get.
What, a tree?
Yeah, a tree in the roots and stuff.
I agree. It's because she wanted to branch out. Can you imagine? If money really did grow on trees, we'd be raking it in.
There'd be no trees on Earth.
You didn't get my pun. Raking it in?
You're so lame.
Unbelievable.
So for new listeners out there, I will give you a quick rundown of what we do here on this channel. Voyse collects stories on Reddit that are interesting, funny, and dramatic, and we give our opinions on them. And we look forward to hearing yours.
And yeah.
And yeah.
Well, you know what we're supposed to do now. We're supposed to remind our lovely listeners to hydrate because it's Hydration Wednesday.
Be a land mermaid.
Oh, yeah. or a merman, okay? It's merman.
I'm a merman, Dad.
And while you go ahead and enjoy your delicious water, merman, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story. Am I the a-hole for telling my cheating wife a day before our daughter's graduation that I would be divorcing her? My wife and I have been married for 20 years, and we have a daughter who's 18. She graduated high school a few months ago. Around 6 years ago, I found out that my wife was cheating on me and having an affair which lasted for a couple of months. I really wanted to divorce, but my wife was really remorseful. She quit her job. She started going to therapy. She promised all reconciliation steps I asked for. Ultimately, I did decide to stay with my wife for her sake and for our family's sake too. For around 5 years, everything was actually going great, and we had date nights, romantic vacations, and we really loved each other. However, on the 6th year, the whole thing resurfaced back on my mind, and I just couldn't get my mind off it. I finally made a decision after a particular line from my sister struck a chord with me. She said, "Would you really want to use the gift of life and spend it with someone who had betrayed you so badly?" She told me this a couple days before my daughter's graduation, and that's when I finally decided I couldn't do it anymore. A day before my daughter's graduation, I informed my wife of my decision and told her that I would be filing for divorce soon. My wife was shocked, and she cried a lot and told me she would do anything, but I told her that my decision was final. My daughter's graduation in itself was great, and I was really proud of my daughter, and my wife seemed happy too. But my daughter could sense something was wrong and asked me why her mom seemed down and trying to fake a smile. I told her not to worry about it and to just enjoy the day. The next day, however, I told my daughter I would be filing for divorce, and my daughter seemed shocked. She said how I could do this to her mom before graduation, and that's why her mom couldn't enjoy the graduation. I told her it's none of her business, but we'll both always love her regardless. My wife and I are now going through divorce proceedings. Am I the a-hole?
This is a devastatingly terrible story to start off our Wednesday with. It
Hydration.
Was perfectly lovely until you started with this story. Because at the beginning, I'm with the guy, right? He says, hey, my wife cheated, but right about the second or third sentence in, he's like, all of these things that I said needed to be met for us to continue our lives together. And one of them was quitting her job. Why was that something that needed to be done in order for you guys to continue your relationship together? Unless the
cheating happened
there, right?
Could have.
But forcing someone to quit their job and to rely solely on you is a no-no. I'm not certain if that was she no longer could work outside the home, or how much control you were exerting upon your wife with that type of request, but that is dastardly in and of itself. So the second I heard that part, I was already kind of seeing the story in a different light. That's why I've always said it. It's really hard to rebuild trust, but if it comes at the cost of someone's autonomy, that's not real trust. That's not real love. I don't defend cheaters, but I also don't defend abusers. That's what you are, in my mind. And then you say, this occurrence happened 6 years ago. She did everything that you required of her for her to gain your trust back. And then 5 years later, it sounds like your sister, some family member,
Sister, correct,
was whispering in your ear. Why she would be doing that is interesting. So I wonder why when the sister comes after your wife like that, it was so easy to revert back to the hurt. The only thing that comes to my mind is you've never actually forgiven your wife. So all of those things that you punished her with, right? The no working anymore. I'm certain there were some other things like invading someone's privacy with their phone. I don't know how far that rabbit hole goes, but seldom does someone just stop at one requirement. It's always a plethora of things before they feel secure in that relationship, which again is very unhealthy.
Which apparently they felt secure for those 5 years.
Until the sister started destroying what was left of that relationship, which means there was never a good foundation to begin with after the cheating had happened. It was, you appease me through all of my wants or I leave. That's never a good place to be in. I think you're actually probably doing your wife a favor here. Now, doing it right before your daughter's graduation is a truly petty move. Why would you have picked that day to have started up that type of drama?
From what our OP said in the comments section, they just started thinking about it and they couldn't continue on with it. That's it.
I'm just wondering why his sister would have said a comment like that to begin with, unless she was trying to pepper it in to manipulate him.
It sounds like, based on a comment from OP, first they said that this wasn't a spur of the moment thing. He said, I was dwelling on it for the past year or so and talking it out with my sis. She told me that it was finally time I put myself first and that I deserved to be with someone who would unconditionally love me, someone who would be there for me through thick and thin, and someone who would never betray me. Don't get me wrong. I truly believe that people should feel unconditionally loved and have somebody there with them through thick and thin. And it would be great if nobody ever betrayed anybody. I think in this case, while yes, OP's wife did betray him first, they also worked to make sure that they would be everything else and to fix that betrayal. And by our OP putting essentially stipulations, at least in my opinion, I guess I have to wonder just how much of the law that our OP's wife lived through to make it so that in 5 years they were really happy until for whatever reason our OP started second guessing whether they were happy. And then they brought a family member into the fold when it came to how it is that they should conduct their relationship.
Which sometimes can be a good thing to get a different perspective, right? Everyone has to have someone they can find in. It happens.
But for a year, if they were dwelling on it for a year or more and they never talked to the actual person that was causing this, what does that say about you?
Sure, I agree with that. It doesn't sound like there is good communication. But the real robbery here, outside of the cheating, she should never have done that, and I'm never going to defend those things.
I agree with that.
But she was holding on so tightly to this relationship that she allowed herself then to be under whatever rules and stipulations that made him feel safe in the relationship. She allowed those things to take hold to the point where, again, are we talking about someone who's been out of the workplace for 5 or 6 years, now all of a sudden having to find work because her husband required that she not work after cheating? We're getting into a whole other problem here. For you to have said you've forgiven her, putting all of those stipulations on top of that, and then ultimately not forgiving her, waiting 5 years, not having communication with your wife, and then telling her you're divorcing her on the eve of your daughter's graduation. You're a clown, dude.
The consensus on Reddit was our OP's the a-hole. For Redditors, some understood that it's tough to stay with someone you can't trust, but honestly, it was totally wrong timing. OP made a time that should have been focused on his daughter's achievement and put an awful cloud over it, then told her to butt out when there was clearly something wrong. For many, OP waited 6 years. What is 6 days to think of his daughter getting a special moment?
Unless he waited the 6 years because that put his daughter at 18 and then he wasn't going to be liable for child support.
I also wonder that as well. Now, OP doesn't owe staying with someone, but they could have been the bigger person on it all. That's sort of my opinion on that. Also, I'm not a fan of the sister. She sounds like a toxic person. I don't condone cheating, but I understand that some rare couples, through a lot of work, can actually come out on the other end stronger and better than ever. However, there isn't much strength if OP is listening to snakes. Now, I will say there was one comment from our OP that for me sort of slams down on what kind of selfish person they are. Now, the one thing that I can say is when someone tries to shade words by making it not sound as bad, the one thing that I can say in this post that read sort of a red flag is she promised all reconciliation steps I asked for. And that for me just screams of some form of control, that control that you were talking about when you require people to live a certain way just to make me feel comfortable. And that's no longer being in a true partnership anymore.
Oh, your autonomy is gone.
I think it's awful. But for me, this one comment from our OP screams that selfishness again. And they put down, I just wanted to be honest and transparent with my wife once I made the decision. I was also able to enjoy my daughter's graduation, and a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. My daughter's graduation day was the proudest day of my life.
There's a whole bunch of me's in there, and he's not seeing what he did to the family as a whole, when all he had to do was wait a couple of days after that.
That graduation day wasn't for you, dude. That graduation day was for your daughter, and you made it about you. There are other people that called him out and said, look, you didn't have to stay with your wife. You could have ended it 6 years ago rather than prolonged it into what this is now. And for me, I have to question the ulterior motives of our OP, whether they wanted to wait for 18, because of course they don't want to pay child support and deal with all of that in the court system. While I question that, the one thing that I can say is you could have just waited to let your daughter have a good day with her parents on a special day of her achievement, and you didn't. And let me go ahead and read just a very small update from our OP. Our OP says, my daughter called me last night and told me she came across the post I had posted. And after reading my comments, she asked how I could be so cruel to her mom. She then told me she was going to temporarily go low contact with me. I did tell her I know she's going through a lot and I'll always be there for her, but I'll respect her decision to go low contact. So that's not really the best news, but life does move on. I have to say that sort of, well, too bad for her, but I'm moving on with my life, really shows that he didn't care about anybody else other than his own feelings. The thing is, you, OP, included your daughter into this whole mess. That truly wasn't any of her concern until you did make it her concern by your awful timing because you wanted to make it about you. You can go ahead and live the life that you want. Be with the person that you want to be with. You don't need to be with somebody that you don't need to be with. But understand that your actions didn't impact the one person that hurt you the most. You also ended up hurting somebody that loves you and that you claim to love. How is that not a form of betrayal?
Good relationships can't be rebuilt upon stipulations.
Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about proving yourself in the workplace. Am I the a-hole for bringing my degree into work to prove I graduated? I'll try not to make this too long. I, 32 male, work in an office where everyone has at least a bachelor's degree. This is relevant. Most of my coworkers have their degrees framed on the walls of their offices, and some also have pictures of them at their graduations. In fact, I think I'm the only one that doesn't. I'd rather decorate my walls with pictures of my wife and me on trips we've taken. I also didn't even attend my college graduation. not much for ceremonies, so I don't have any cap and gown pictures, which has never bothered me. Recently, a coworker, we'll call him John, started suggesting I didn't actually go to college and lied to get this job. The accusation was so ridiculous that I basically ignored it, but that just seemed to convince him more. He started saying dumb stuff like, "Must be nice to have gotten this job without doing any real work. I wish I could have gotten this job without student loans. And if you'd gone to college like the rest of us, you'd understand." I tried ignoring him, thinking he probably just wanted to start drama. But eventually, I could sense our other coworkers beginning to think John might be right, since I wasn't really disputing it. I figured I'd just bring in my degree and put an end to it. Now, here's the thing. I did really well in school, enough that I graduated with a first-class honors, which my diploma says. I've never mentioned this to anyone at work because it didn't feel that important. The degree itself is what matters. However, when I brought my diploma in, my coworkers really focused on the first-class honors thing. I kind of became the hotshot of the office that day, which was weird. My boss insisted I add it to my wall, saying it looked good for the company. My coworkers then began teasing John about the whole thing, pointing out how his degree doesn't say anything about honors, and saying it was a dumb accusation. Now, John is pissed off and calling me an a-hole, saying I made him look bad with the whole honors thing, and saying I could have found some other way to prove I graduated without bringing in the degree. So, am I the a-hole for bringing my diploma into work to prove I graduated and making John look bad?
No. In fact, John's lucky you didn't go to HR, which is where you should have started.
I agree.
That is harassment. You don't have to prove anything. The fact that you have the job should be enough for your coworkers, because what John just displayed was what he's displaying again. You're never going to be enough for him. That's not how those type of people function. So now he's making it about a new fight. Sure, is it fun to glam up the wall and put your achievements on? Yeah, but ROP already explains it. He's not for that, because yes, a lot of people have bachelors. Especially if you're working in an office setting or if you're for a big corporation, it doesn't really matter. And he is correct. All that really matters at the end of the day is that you have whatever piece of paper you need. But yes, it is fun to find out that someone that you're like, don't really know a whole lot about achieved pretty high markings in school. I've been caught off a couple of times with coworkers like that. I'm like, wow, we're not the same. Let me just hide this. You know, it's like having that one friend in school that, you know, like awards where they got everything under the sun, and then you're like really feeling really happy before you get up to them and you just have the perfect attendance one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got that attendance award, guys. I didn't miss a single day.
I'm going to just put this in my pocket. Yeah, honestly, your coworker, John, needs to learn how to mind his own business and stop trying to start drama over absolutely nothing, because it did come from a real place. That's not just...
Those snide remarks.
That's to try to get you fired.
Slap those words silly back into your mouth.
Reputation is important. So when someone starts besmirching that, absolutely not. So OP, you are not the a-hole.
Our consensus on Reddit is our OP is not the a-hole. For Redditors, it was a special moment John learned what putting his foot in his mouth truly meant. Now, our OP did post an edit. They said, "Damn, I'm new to Reddit and definitely wasn't expecting this many responses. Thanks for the majority of you for saying I'm not the a-hole. Now to respond to a couple things, since some people asked, I work in urban planning. We're a private company, not government. It's not required that we have our credentials/degrees displayed. And in fact, I don't even think it's common within the industry. Just a part of my office's culture, I guess. Like I said, I never liked it much. To those of you that said my coworkers sound very childish, you're correct. Though I will say their walls aren't exclusively decorated with their diplomas. They also have pictures of their families and other stuff, as I do. Some of you said it would have been better for me to go to HR instead of bringing in the diploma, and I admit you may be right. That would have been the less dramatic way to handle things. I honestly didn't expect my coworkers to make such a big deal out of the whole honors thing. Some suggested I make a copy of my diploma since John may now try to steal/destroy it. I don't think he's quite dumb enough to try a stunt like that, especially since it would be pretty obvious that it was him. Some also said I should watch out, since it sounds like he has it out for me now. Thanks for the advice, but I don't think I really have to worry. Most of us, including my bosses, know that he's a bit dramatic, and I don't think he can really do much to threaten my job. After all this, John attempted to say his original accusation that I didn't graduate was a big joke, and he didn't actually mean it, which was obviously a lie and didn't really help his case. I can tell he's still pissed, but thankfully, he's mostly just ignoring me now, which is how I like it.
Sounds like John only ever got perfect attendance awards too.
If anything, I will say, regardless of what you think you know about someone, just be careful.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how people can flip a switch, especially when they don't like you.
Very, very true.
Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about breaking up. Am I the a-hole for being disgusted and just saying okay when my fiancé broke up with me? So, I don't know, man. I, 28, have been with my fiancé, Alex, 34, since 2020. We met at a friend's party, hit it off, and had been together ever since. He finished his doctorate in economics just last year. Since then, he has been working at the uni. I have my master's in media sciences and decided to start working instead of going for a PhD. Okay, so the problem is that Alex broke up with me last Monday. It was literally so surreal and honestly, just weird. For the past few months, he'd been acting strange. He was making demands and then dropping them immediately. A few examples? He told me we were going to paint our walls back from dark green to white. When I asked why, he just said, "For fuck's sake, forget it," and never brought it up again, even when I asked. Another time, he came home and got mad because I was sitting on the couch with my head covered in a blanket. I had cramps. He was upset because I was just sitting there watching Netflix. Mind you, the house was spotless. When I tried to talk about it, he said, "Forget it. It's not a big deal." This kind of thing became common. Every time I tried to communicate, tried to figure out what was going on, whether it was something I did or maybe he was just stressed at work, he would just say everything was fine, but he was clearly seething with rage. I didn't even have to do anything. He would find something to complain about: the apartment, clothes, me, work, etc. So I gave him space, which apparently was also wrong. I told him I was going to help my parents with repairs for a few days, and somehow that was also wrong because he wanted to renovate the apartment too. Then, on Monday, I got a text saying we needed to talk. I knew what was coming, and after the last few months, I had made peace with it. When I came home, he was sitting on the couch. He didn't even wait for me to take off my jacket before saying, "I want to break up." Then the verbal diarrhea started. He told me he resented me. First, because I didn't pursue my academic career further, even though I was capable, and he didn't want to upset me at the time. Then, when I started making more money, since he didn't make much as a PhD student, he felt like I should have the last word financially, and he hated it. Mind you, I never said anything like, "It's my money, so I have the final say." That's a rule he imposed on himself, and he hated it. He said he hated our paint scheme, the couch, and even our fucking crock pot. Then he told me he had rejected a better PhD program to stay here because I had already started my job by the time he got the acceptance letters. Only he never told me he had even applied overseas. He said a few months ago he checked in with a friend who's in that program, saw how they were thriving, and decided I ruined his life. He said I had too much control over his life and that he hated the idea that I could just decide not to pay for things and fuck him over. I honestly don't even know what that means. He also said he hated that all his friends loved me and didn't let him vent about me. Then he said, "I'm done." I was floored. I had already made peace with the idea that we were ending, and it hurt. But after the rant, I was just disgusted. I looked at him, probably with a disgusted expression, and said, "Okay." He lost it. He said this is exactly what he meant, that it was horrible. We had been together for 4 years, and all I had to say was okay to our breakup. I just asked if he wanted to stay here while he figured out where to go. He said, typical, of course you're holding the apartment over me, and started ranting again, so I just left. I told my parents, and they're also confused. My dad suggested I reach out to our landlord and explain the situation to see what options I have. I can keep paying the rent no problem myself. He covered the utilities and some subscriptions. Just to reiterate, I never had a problem with this. I saw that he was chasing his dream, and that was more important to me than a 50-50 financial split. I make good money and am happy at my job. I never saw it as slaving away. I always had the mentality that my money was our money because we were building a life together. Of course, I had my own savings and fun money, but I honestly never cared. As long as I felt he was working towards something and wasn't taking advantage of me, I was fine with it, more than fine. Alex is still mad. He's going between texting me like a robot about the logistics of the split to being a seething a-hole complaining about everything. I'm not even hurt anymore. I just feel nauseated by him at this point. I don't know. Should I have reacted differently? Am I the a-hole?
What an interesting story this is. Sounds like our OP's boyfriend, fiance, doesn't know how to communicate. Didn't talk about any of these problems and just let them fester. Had you just talked to it sounds like a very understanding girlfriend, none of this happens. I'm almost certain that if you had come to her, because she sounds very rational, if you had come to her and said, I just got an opportunity and I got accepted for me to go abroad, is this something that you'd be interested in coming and following me with?
So actually, I can say from our OP's comment section that they said they would have supported their fiance going overseas for this PhD program. They more than likely wouldn't have followed, but they would have tried to have done the long distance relationship, regardless of that being a hard 50-50 on surviving, but that they would have supported them doing it. They would never have forced them to stay.
See, it doesn't sound like she's putting down the stipulation of it's my way or no way. It definitely sounds like he, though, is playing in that realm. That whole thing about whoever makes the most money has the last say, that is some toxic stuff inside of a relationship.
I agree.
If you both are contributing in the same amount towards that relationship, you both have a say. I'm talking about if we're both building towards the same future. So for him to already be in that type of mindset, I would say that that's a little more dangerous anyway, because at some point through his education, whatever he's doing, he might end up making more than you.
And lording it over her.
And you don't want to be in that situation. So you're already seeing the values here. He might have done you the favor, OP. If 4 years and you guys haven't had, it sounds like a real conversation within the relationship. Not the tough ones. No matter how hard she pushes to have those conversations, they'll never happen because he's not ready for them. You're going to get what happened here. A building of animosity and misunderstanding. It sounds like he needs to do some maturing too. Yeah, you're not the a-hole, OP.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. For Redditors, this is a case of making someone else a villain due to their own shortcomings. OP is allowed to feel disgust at seeing their partner reveal their awful feelings. That apparently is so bad that not even friends understand where the hate is coming from when it comes to OP's fiance. And it sounds like the relationship ended the moment OP's partner checked out.
I mean, it sounds like that happened a minute ago in their relationship.
Oh, definitely. I find it interesting because it's very right. OP's fiance's friends wouldn't even allow OP's fiance to talk bad about her because they realize there's nothing really to talk bad about unless you're just upset that someone's a really good person.
Well, to him, she wasn't. She was lording the money over his head, apparently. The paint of the wall had to be her way or no way in his head. He had to pass up on an opportunity, again, in his head, but unwilling to talk about any of it.
It sounds like those are things that she's very right, imposed on himself.
Yes.
You know, if she would have said, I think it would look cool if our room was painted this dark green. And he goes, okay, what else is there for her to do? But then to say, okay, then it's a great idea. We'll just go ahead and do it. If he never brings up that he had this opportunity and doesn't take it, how does it fall on anyone else's shoulders? I don't understand individuals who don't want to take accountability for their own regrets.
I wonder if he's one of those people that likes to or has a problem with conflict. And so he avoids it at all costs till it builds up into this type of blow up. But yeah, you got to work on that. It's not okay to not take accountability for the decisions we make in life. Yeah, sometimes other people can be part of the problem, but you still have the autonomy to make the decisions you have in life, be it a color on a wall or a job opportunity that you didn't even bother to bring up with your girlfriend who would have supported you.
The one thing that I can say about our OP, and really, there are multiple things that I can say about them. I like them as a person. Even in this whole situation, they're not trying to make the other side worse than what it really is. I mean, I can't tell you. You had some Redditors that, of course, will attack someone's sexuality and how they perform in bed, right? If he's this bad as a partner, he's probably this bad in bed. Our OP's like, no, he's actually very good in bed. So I truly like the OP for me because they're the person that's trying to make sure that they're not allowing petty feelings to essentially cloud the situation. And I appreciate that, like reading through how they talk. They're not using Reddit as a place to essentially shit talk their now ex. Let me go ahead and read an edit by our OP. Edit. Thank you for all your opinions. It was nice to get this off my chest, lol. Just to clarify though, I don't feel like a victim. I feel like something happened and my relationship just turned bad. He behaved like an a-hole, and that is the extent of it. Very clearly something is going on, but he doesn't want me to be a part of whatever it is, and I have to respect that. Now I just have to detangle myself legally from him, and after that, I'll just be left alone with my ugly green wall color. I think I might also adopt a cat, as my ex was really allergic.
Again, even understanding to the very end.
I love our OP, I must say.
There are better days.
Well, let's go on to our very last story and talk about a new thing called crinkle karma.
What is crinkle karma?
You're going to find out. Today, I fucked up by trying to convince my wife crinkle karma was real. So this happened a couple days ago, and my wife still isn't letting me live it down. I've always been the type to mess with my wife for a laugh. Don't worry, she messes with me right back. Recently, I discovered this very specific hack to get snacks without triggering her supersonic snack radar. Somehow, whenever I tried to sneak a snack from the pantry, she'd hear the slightest crinkle of the bag from another room. Like, I could sneeze right next to her and she wouldn't bat an eye, but crinkle a chip bag and she was there in seconds, giving me the look. That's when crinkle karma was born. I decided to invent something I called crinkle karma. I told her that every time you crinkle a snack bag and don't share, crinkle karma will come for you. Basically, crinkle karma would curse you to spill something, get a stain, or just embarrass yourself snack-wise. She gave me a look like, you're full of it, but seemed slightly intrigued. So, crinkle karma became our household joke, and I started tossing it around whenever she gave me that look. Fast forward to a few nights later. I'm in the kitchen, barely moving, trying to avoid the wrath of crinkle karma by opening a bag of chips as silently as possible. My wife walks in and gives me this sneaky smile before whispering, "Shh, crinkle karma." She actually believed it enough to come get a handful of my chips, guilt-free. At that point, I'm convinced that maybe crinkle karma has some real power over her, and maybe me too. Cut to another day or so later, I'm sitting at my computer with a secret stash of Oreos, operating in complete stealth mode to avoid crinkle karma's curse. I'm taking each cookie out slowly, trying to be crinkle silent. Then, out of nowhere, I hear this random crinkle noise from somewhere in the house. Cue immediate panic. I swear my heart skipped a beat, convinced that my nonsense about crinkle karma had somehow come to life and was haunting me. My wife finds me mid-panic, holding an Oreo with this wide-eyed look. She puts her hands on her hips and says, "The old stinky crinkly finally got you, huh?" She has never been more delighted to see me fall victim to my own made-up superstition. And now she's constantly warning me about crinkle karma every time I even think about sneaking a snack without sharing. Lesson learned: don't invent random snack superstitions like crinkle karma unless you're fully prepared for your wife to turn them against you. Because now, crinkle karma is haunting me on a daily. The too long don't read tried to mess with my wife by making up crinkle karma as a fake snack stealing superstition. Now she's using it to guilt me into sharing snacks constantly, and crinkle karma has officially backfired on me.
As it should. I had a incident. I'm not sure if this is why you picked this story, but
It is.
we bought 2 very large bags of Halloween candy for the trick-or-treaters this year. Like really big bags.
One of them is pure chocolate stuff, and the other one is non-chocolate stuff.
And we bought it a couple days before Halloween, and we were like, okay, because a lot of these chocolates we haven't had in a very long time.
Oh, yes.
You don't indulge in all of that stuff normally. So we wanted to take and try out a sample of each.
It was nice. It was enjoyable.
Let's make sure we keep some for the children. For a couple days, we were doing okay. And then I guess this is why you picked it, because it was my turn to start dinner a couple nights ago. And when I was cooking dinner, I snuck some candy and I left the evidence on the counter while I was cooking.
All 4 wrappers emptied.
And Voyse, I feel like Voyse ninja'd down the stairs, so I couldn't hear him.
Though. I was clinking the cups that I was bringing down from upstairs. I was surprised you didn't hear me.
And I turned around, and there you are, seeing my evidence. All I heard was, well. I know I have to operate the same way, though. If Voyse hears any crinkle anywhere, she will appear behind me,
dun, dun,
out of
dun.
the shadow, and say, "What you having?"
I've done it several times to you.
Yep.
There was one time where I think you went for like chips or pretzels or something inside the pantry, and I heard the crinkle, and then I scared you.
You move quietly around the house. But yeah, that's a cute story. I'm certain a lot of people deal with that, though. One person snacks, and everyone else wants to know what's up.
We've probably been dealing with crinkle karma and never even knew it.
Well, was that our last story?
That was our last story.
Very relatable.
Crinkle
last one.
karma.
Not the other ones.
Yeah.
But the last one, definitely. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and click that little bell to receive notifications for our upcoming episodes, which always come out on Mondays and Wednesdays.
And on our Patreon on Saturdays.
That's right. For Dumbest After Dark. We would also love to thank all of our Patreons for your support. Thank you so much.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of y'all.
Mwah!
And as always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today?
Have you ever experienced crinkle karma?
And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
You know, I want to play a board game. I don't know what board game, but I feel like playing a board game.
What's a good board game to play on a cloudy, cold day? I don't play chess with you. Voyse actually plays that on a very competitive level. I've seen her in tournaments. She's devastating. So when we play, it's dastardly. But what other games? I can beat you in a mean game of Sorry. That's always fun. I grew up with a lot of siblings, so that game gets violent.
Bring it.
Alonzi.